Right, good morning, grade 11s. So we're starting with one of my favorite things, which is the eye. And I'm just sad that we don't have time to do the ear as well, because that's also one of my favorite things. Many things in biology are my favorite, but these are also my favorite. Okay, so we're dealing with receptors or sense organs, and a brief definition about which you don't have to worry is a type of cell or organ that is capable of detecting the presence of a particular stimulus, which in turn would bring about a response in the organism if it is present, or if it is absent, or if there's a change in that particular stimulus. Okay, and we're dealing with the eye. Right, so the eye is connected to the brain via the optic nerve, and we spoke about this when we did the central nervous system. So you can see here's a left eye, here's a right eye, optic nerve. The parts of some of the neurons from the nerve cross over each other. And then remember, the important thing is that the sensory neurons take the impulse to the occipital lobe of the brain, and the occipital lobe of the brain is what interprets the stimulus as sight. This would be if one took a brain out of a cranium and looked at the ventral view. It's very clear. Here's an optic nerve. There's an optic nerve. They cross over, or some of the neurons do. But it is in the occipital region here of the cerebrum. So remember, the cerebellum would lie just underneath here. But in the occipital region of the cerebrum, that the stimulus is interpreted as vision. So if one looked at the brain here from underneath, an eyeball, there's an optic nerve, it's a big nerve. Okay, and look, here's the spinal cord. The spinal nerves, and you can even see really nice dorsal ganglion there and there. Okay, we're going to learn about lots of things within the eyes and how they work, but I'll go through them bit by bit. So, quite interestingly, in mammals, only the upper eyelid moves. Try blinking, and then you'll realize it is only the upper eyelid that moves. It's not the lower. Whereas in things like reptiles, well, not snakes, because snakes don't have eyelids, and birds, both eyelids move. In our case, it's only the upper eyelid that moves. Okay. The eyelid protects the eyeball from desiccation and from things going into it, normally, hopefully. And when the eyelid blinks, which is about every 7 seconds or so, it flushes tears over the eyeball and keeps it moisturized. The eyelid also blinks as a reflex when the eye senses a particle that is going to enter it. And you know that because if somebody threw a tennis ball at you, you know, you'd blink. Also, and don't worry about this one, when the eye is adjusting to a new line of vision to help prevent the initial blurry vision that can occur from refocusing very quickly, the eyelid normally blinks. And then the eyelashes protect the eye from small particles such as dust, sand, and debris, as well as from excessive sunlight. Okay, so you all know about conjunctivitis or pink eye. It's a common eye disease, especially in children, and it's caused by bacteria or viruses, and it causes an inflammation of the conjunctiva. Now, the conjunctiva is a thin membranous layer of tissue, and it contains goblet cells. And I'm showing you on the right diagram here, this layer of red. And please don't worry about what the different parts of it are called. It lines the upper eyelid, folds back, covers the eyeball as far as this part which bulges out, that I'll talk about later on, called the cornea. And then the same in the lower eyelid, lines the lower eyelid, folds back, covers the sclera or outer layer as far as this little bulgy part called the cornea. And those of you who wear contact lenses I'm sure you often get asked, aren't you scared that your contact lenses will go behind your eyeball? Well, they can't, because if you look here, there's this little fold here. That's as far as they can go. They can't go further than that. Okay, so what are the functions of the conjunctiva? To keep the surface of the eye moist and lubricated, and to keep the inner surface of the eyelids moist and lubricated, so they can close easily. And then also to protect the eye from dust, debris, and infection-causing microorganisms. Okay, so here you can see the conjunctiva lines the lower eyelid and then folds back and covers the surface of the eye as far as the cornea, which is this part over here. Okay, you're going to see many drawings that show the conjunctiva covering the surface of the cornea. That's not actually accurate, but Isabella, don't obsess. None of you obsess. Okay, so here's just, you can see the effects of conjunctivitis or pink eye. It's not a pleasant thing, and it's not a good thing. Okay, glands of Meibom. These are modified sebaceous glands. Now, sebaceous glands are found all over the surface of the skin. They secrete sebum, which is a kind of oily substance. And these little glands of Meibom are open on the margin of the eyelids. I'm going to show you the margin of the eyelids. So it would be all the way along there and all the way along there. And they synthesize and secrete lipids and proteins that form the upper layer of the tear film. And they help to spread over the surface of the eye when blinking and prevent the evaporation of tears. They also prevent the upper and the lower eyelids from sticking together. So if I said to you, show me here where your tear glands are, I'm sure that the majority of you would go, they're here. In fact, they're not. And it's very illogical that they would be there if you think about it. But I'm sure that everybody in the whole world always thinks that they're there because that's where tears come from. But no, they don't. So the lachrymal gland or tear gland is under the upper outer corner of the eyelid. So it would be under here. And there are some little tear ducts or lachrymal ducts which open underneath the upper eyelid in this outer corner, and tears wash over the surface of the eyeball, and in fact they drain out here, and I'll show you that in a picture now. Okay, so there's a lachrymal gland or tear gland. There are some lachrymal ducts. Tears wash over the surface of the eyeball. And then if you look inside the little inner corner of your eyelid, both the upper and the lower eyelid, you'll see a tiny little hole there, and there lachrymal ducts that lead from there. And those two lachrymal ducts open into a bigger duct, which opens inside the nose. And so when a person cries, more tears are formed than can drain out at any one time, and that's why tears go down the face over there. That's why everyone thinks that the tear glands are over here, but they're not, they're over there. And you can see here in this picture, there's a lachrymal gland. It's underneath the upper eyelid. Okay, and please note that lachrymal, see at the bottom here, can also be spelled L-A-C-R-I-M-A-L, but I'm not into that, and I would prefer you if you spelled it this way. Okay. Then there are muscles that attach to the eyeball. Extraocular, in other words, outside the eyeball. And these are muscles that work in pairs, and they move the eyeball. Okay, so within each pair, the muscles are said to be work antagonistically to each other. And you know this term because you learned about it last year when you learned about like the biceps and the triceps muscle. When one is contracted, the other is relaxed, and vice versa. And so I'll describe them, and I'll show you on a picture. So let's show you on this particular picture. So this one on the left-hand side is looking at an eye from the side. from the outside. So this is the right eyeball. Here's the nose. Okay, this is the right eyeball. And this is looking at the right eyeball from the top. So let's go through them in pairs. So the ones that move the eyeball up and down. So if you were looking forward and I said to you look upwards and you rotated your eyes up, then that would be the superior rectus muscle here. You can see it attaches there and it attaches inside the bony socket in which the eyeball is situated. That bony socket is called the orbit. So that's the superior rectus, and its antagonistic partner is the inferior rectus. Now you can't see, but it attaches underneath here, and there it goes there, inferior rectus. Okay, so if this contracts, that's relaxed, and vice versa. You can see them over here on the right side. There's the superior rectus, there's the inferior rectus. Then there are the two that roll the eyeball in, don't roll it, sorry, just move the eyeball inwards or outwards. So if I said to you, look at your nose, then that would be the medial rectus. Okay, you can see the medial rectus. And if I said to you, look towards your right side without turning your head, then that would be the lateral rectus. Oh, sorry. Okay, so medial, lateral rectus, superior, inferior rectus. And then there are the two that roll the eyeball, or rotate the eyeball. This one is called the superior oblique, oblique meaning an angle. And what you can see is that it attaches to the sclera and then it curves around a little hook of bone here. I think it's bone. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about its name either. And then it goes straight to the back of the eye. And so this one rolls the eyeball. Okay. And then there's an equivalent inferior oblique. If you look on the left diagram, this is the inferior oblique. So the oblique muscles light angles. So if we go back and have a look, superior oblique rotates the eyeball. Okay. So if you have a look here, okay, don't worry about which of the obliques rotates inwards and outwards and whatever, it doesn't matter. Just know that the obliques rotate, superior rectus up, inferior down, etc., etc. Okay, let's have a look at the layers of the wall of the eyeball. So if one cuts through the eyeball and works inwards, there are 3 layers to the wall of the eyeball. The outside one is called the sclera. It is very, very, very tough, and I'm sad that you're not going to dissect an eyeball because it's one of my favorite dissections, and it is always surprising how tough the sclera is. It's very hard to cut it. I'll show you a video of a dissection and you can see there how difficult it is to cut it. So for the back part of the eye, the posterior, about 5/6 of the eyeball, it's white in color and it has some blood vessels in it. And you know that because when your eyes become red, then it's those blood vessels that you can see at that stage. But generally, you'd say it's tough, it's white, and it is very important because it helps to maintain the shape of the eyeball, which is critical in being able to see properly. It's also very firm, so the muscles of the eyeball that are attached to that are able to pull and they don't distort the eyeball. So the posterior 5/6 of this fibrous layer contain blood vessels that supply the cells with oxygen and nutrients and remove carbon dioxide and other wastes. But the anterior 6th is transparent. It has no blood vessels. That part is called the cornea. The cornea is thicker than the rest of the sclera, and thus the front of the sclera bulges outwards, which is important in focusing light rays, and we'll talk about that. So the sclera is here, is shown as this orange part, front here, the cornea, is part of the sclera. It's actually thicker and so should be drawn a little bit thicker. But what is important is that it bulges outwards. Okay, so that's the cornea. Okay, this is a medial longitudinal section. And you can see beautifully here on this picture of a cat, the cornea. You can see that it is transparent and you can see that it bulges outwards. Okay, so I said to you that there are 3 layers that make up the wall of the eyeball. The second layer from the outside is called the choroid. Please note how to spell it. And it's the middle of the 3 layers. And it doesn't extend all the way around the eyeball at the front as the sclera does. So if you look at it, what it actually does is the choroid at the front of the eyeball has 2 structures that are terribly, terribly important. The one is at the front, it folds inwards at an angle from all sides, and this is the iris of the eye. So there's the iris. If I say to you, what color are your eyes? And you go brown, then you're talking about the color of the iris. Okay. The iris doesn't go to the middle, so there's a hole in the middle here, and that is called the pupil. All right. But we'll go back and we'll talk about the iris and the pupil later on. But the choroid contains many blood vessels and a lot of dark pigment, which functions to absorb excess light rays and therefore prevents the excess light rays from being reflected around the inside of the eyeball. Just behind the iris, there is a thickened ring called the ciliary body. So that's here on this diagram. And it goes all the way around the eye. So it's three dimensions. So you can see it here at the top in section, you can see it there at the bottom in section, but it's gone all the way around the eyeball. Okay. And it contains circular and radial ciliary muscles, and they are critical in focusing during vision. Suspended from the ciliary body that contains the ciliary muscles are suspensory ligaments, and these hold the lens of the eye in position, and they play an important part in focusing when looking at various things. And we'll talk about accommodation or focusing later on. Then I said that the iris is the region of the choroid that bends inwards at right angles, front of the eye, just behind the cornea. And it contains a variety of pigments. It's the colored part of the eye. It's important because it is able to change the size of this little hole, the pupil, and therefore it can change and control the amount of light entering the eyeball. So I've just said to you that the pupil is a hole. It's not a structure. It's not. So it is. It's a hole. And the reason why it appears black is because if one is looking from front into the eyeball, in fact, what one is seeing is the back of the eyeball, which is black because remember the choroid has got all those pigments, dark pigments that absorb all the light rays, and so there's no light being reflected around the eye, and that's why it appears to be black. And remember that the size of the pupil is controlled by the circular and radial muscles of the iris. So just like the ciliary body has circular and radial muscles, so too does the iris have circular and radial muscles. And they control the size of the pupil. And you can see beautifully here that the pupil is actually very clearly a hole. So within the iris, there are circular muscles that go around the iris, and there are radial muscles which rotate outwards. And when the circular are contracted, the pupil becomes smaller or constricts. And when the radial are contracted and the circular relaxed, then the pupil dilates. Okay, so in bright light, the circular muscles of the iris are contracted and the radial are relaxed, and the amount of light is reduced because the pupil constricts. Okay, so circular muscle contracted, the ones that go round, the radial, the ones that radiate out like rays, are relaxed, and therefore the pupil becomes constricted. Know that word. Okay. In dim light, the radial muscles of the iris are contracted and the circular are relaxed. The pupil is larger and more light enters the eye, and that means that the object being observed can be seen more clearly. So the pupil allows the light stimulus to enter the eye and to reach the photoreceptors at the back of the eye. So when the pupil gets bigger, the correct term is the pupil dilates. Okay. So bright light, constricted pupil; dim light, dilated pupil. Please make sure that you know how that particular pupillary reflex works. And you mustn't confuse this with accommodation, which we'll talk about later on, and that's the focusing of the eyeball. Okay, all right. Lots of things which just say exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's enough for the first lesson, the first half hour. That's the end of lesson 1.